Greetings, conquerors. Man, it has been a while since we have been together in this space on this platform. We need you to know, first of all, we appreciate your continued prayers, your continued support, and we want to make sure that you know we have not forgotten about you and we are not abandoning our family here because we've been together for quite some time. We want you to know that we are developing some things, we're working on some things, and there's a lot of things to come that we will announce very soon. We are developing season 6 of TBR Live, interesting conversation with interesting people. During the course of that interview, we had so much fun, we decided to do just a little something else that's not attached to the season. So ladies and gentlemen, it's kind of a preview or a prelude to season 6. We've decided to release this particular interview, this particular conversation with Dr. Free. Dr. Free is a very good friend of ours. Dr. Free is a wonderful individual. And ladies and gentlemen, we've just decided we're gonna release this so that you'll know that some things are coming. But we wanted to kind of let you in on some things that we have talked about and some things that we will be talking about during season 6. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is our conversation with Dr. Free, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We want to welcome Dr. Free. This is going to be a good session. This is not a regularly scheduled program. This is just something we felt like doing because we can. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to present to everybody Dr. Free. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So, we're going to talk about authenticity. That's an expensive word.
I had to spell it slow myself, so I won't mess it up.
Yes. That's a very expensive. So when you hear the word authenticity, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
The first thing that pops into my head, actually, I have a weird memory. I remember things in the context that I first heard them most of the time. And I love words. And I love to play on words. And I just love being able to clearly articulate, how I'm feeling and that kind of thing. So I probably put a little bit more emphasis on words than the average person. But answer your question. I remember the context in which I first heard the word authentic. And I heard the word authentic as part of a lyric in a song by India Ari. And the name of the title of the song is called I Choose. And she talks about how she's going to be authentic in every way. And I thought, and it was years ago when I heard it, I thought, authentic. That's an interesting word. Now, being a lover of words, I went and looked it up. and what it meant then, because I was just learning the word, and what it means to me now is so much more richer, and the meaning has grown and evolved over time. But I guess if I could say, simply put, means to be original, means to be true to self, true to self. Yeah. Um, yeah, true to self, original, to say it short, the short version.
All right. Well, you don't have to keep it short here.
Okay.
This is a safe space.
Okay.
So being authentic, that require knowing who you are for real in order to be authentic? Does that require
what I've learned about questions, within questions, there's usually a statement. So I heard both the statement and the question, right? But I'm going to honor that. Yes, absolutely. It is difficult to be true to yourself when you don't know self, right? So in order to really be authentic, the greater awareness or understanding we have of who we are individually, then of course, we can in turn express ourselves more authentically, live more authentically. When we're authentic, that means that I know what I want. I'm in line, I'm in tune with my core values, those things that are important to me. And what I say is in line with what I believe, my core values. My thoughts and my actions are all in alignment with that. Now, when I am not in alignment with my core values or what I think, what I believe, what's true for me, what I value, then I'm being inauthentic, right? When we're inauthentic, we tend to wear this persona, which is not the person that we really are, but maybe the person that we want others to believe that we are, right? Because maybe we're out of touch with who we are, or we think who we really are is inadequate and not enough according to maybe what somebody else's standard might be. So you got to know who you are, right? In order to be authentic. But here's the catch with that is as we express our individual authenticity, we have to make sure that we understand this is a process because the Dr. Free you knew last year may have grown a little bit or evolved a little bit or changed in some kind of way, hopefully not regress, but continue to move forward. So based on where I am and what I know about myself in this particular moment, in this point in time, then that's the lane I'm going to express myself in, right? But guess what? If I know something else or learn something else that allows me to express myself even more, then I'm going to stand in that place, right? And I remember there was a time when I didn't understand that. And so I judged myself because I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to look crazy because I was thinking this at one time and I was writing books about this at one time. And now I ain't even with that anymore. I'm way over here. But that's where I was then. And guess what? That was okay, right? And I'm in a different place now, and that's okay too. And what I like about it is just kind of a sidebar. I don't like to think about it as if it's a hierarchy, like levels, right? Because that gets people caught up, and that gets people thinking, well, I'm on this level and you not. Wait a minute, we are where we need to be, right? And so if I like to say in this space or in this place rather than on a certain level because that helps keep ego in check, right? And that doesn't make me feel like I'm putting myself on a pedestal as if I can look down on somebody if they're not in a certain place. Because trust and believe when I say you might know something, right? And somebody else might know something different, but you might need what they know, right? And guess what? As soon as they know, they end up right where you are. And you might have thought at one time there was a head or higher or whatever. No, that's why that in spirituality, there is no hierarchy. There are no big eyes and little me's and big U's and all that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Is that clear? I know I said a lot in this short
I'm
time.
with you. Yeah, I'm with you. I asked the question originally on purpose because there's been a significant amount of programming,
Oh yeah, talk about that.
and so our programming is tough to get over.
Mm,
And so the person that we might have been working so hard to maintain or show people or we thought we were
yeah,
was never really the real us in the first place.
that part.
Yeah, so we were trying to be the best version of whatever that thing was.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't even true.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes coming to the realization of that can be very scary for some people. Because it's like now I got to get to know me 40 years later. That's not necessarily an easy proposition. What do you think about that?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, you said a mouthful. And you know the deception in that is when we have learned to say the right words or the right phrases or walk the right walk or dress the part or make sure that we're looking the right way and making the right saying amen in the right spot or whatever it is, people will pat us on the back and it would appear that we're doing wonderful. It would appear that we got an A plus, it would seem as if, yes, we rocking this and we could be failing, so to speak, the whole time
Yeah.
because we're being inauthentic. We're being what's acceptable. We're marking the marks on the programming, to use your word. We're doing what's expected, but not being really true to ourselves, right? And that can be a very scary place. In some aspects, I've been there myself. right? Because we want to please, you know, and I think we all have in some way, right? Um, we do that growing up with our parents, right? Bless their hearts, we love them, we appreciate them for what they do and everything. But sometimes we just say yes because we know if we didn't say yes and we said no, there was going to be a problem, right? But saying yes when we would rather have said no was inauthentic for us, right? But because we wanted to please, and because it was necessary that we stay in line, because those were the people that were feeding us and clothing us and so forth and so on, then we had to make sure that we were doing what was expected. But even in that, innocently, as our parents were providing for us and protecting us and teaching us, there were some times that we had to be a little inauthentic because we wanted to be in line with what their expectations are. But even as we go on, you know, whatever jobs we have, I like to use the one about dating, you know. We meet a lot of times the representative. Thank you, Chris Rock. But was that right? Is that the one who had that joke that time, long time ago? I think so. Yeah, we meet the representative, but then that's the one who presents themselves, that persona. But then later on, we get to meet maybe the real person. And sometimes not only to address your original statement, not only can it be frightening for the ones that we living with or hooked up with or whatever it is who we partner with, can it be frightening for them when they get to see the real us? Because you never know somebody till you live with, right? But it can be frightening for ourselves when we get to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not who I am. This is not who I even wanted to be. Now I'm in a situation. What do? I have to make a choice. Do I continue living to please other people and doing what they want me to do? Or do I just bust out of this, you know, this trap, this box, and begin to live according to my own rhythm, the beat of my own drum, you know? Because really, in some kind of ways, I call it in one of my pieces, I call it being delusionally, comfortably uncomfortable. Let that sit for a minute, right? It's like we get comfortable, although we're very uncomfortable. It's like we delude ourselves and we get comfortable being uncomfortable, doing what other people want us to do, being what other people want us to be, because it takes courage to be who you are. It takes courage to not march to the same steps that everybody else is marching to. You know, it can be very daunting to feel like you're gonna go in these uncharted waters or do things that have never been done or do it your way instead of wanting to do it the way everybody else has done it. And so some people just keep doing what everybody else is doing. But what I've learned is somebody who lives their life to make other people happy is one of the most unhappiest people in the world. Yeah. And so when those times come where we realize this is not who I want to be anymore, you can reinvent yourself, so to speak, or just take the mask off. And just say, hey, this is who I am. And realize it's enough, more than enough, and accept ourselves and begin to live life on our own terms and feel the freedom of that, the liberty that comes with that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's an expensive proposition for a lot of people, only because feeling the weight. Most people don't understand the value of being free for real because it's almost never taught. But the other side of that is a lot of people don't really understand the weight of not necessarily fitting in anywhere and it being obvious. I'm not talking about when we just feel like we don't fit in. I mean, when it's obvious that ain't nobody feeling anything that you do and understanding that that's all right.
Mm.
You haven't committed a crime just because all the lines are not straight. It's okay that you have a wrinkle or two in your shirt. That's all right. You haven't done anything wrong. And a lot of people have given up. Okay, so you know my background.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have learned um, over the course of time is when scripture talks about being the salt,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that now. I get it. If I give up who I am, I'm no longer useful. I'm
Mm.
useless now.
Okay.
The moment I decide that the only way to do this is the way it's been done, or the acceptable way in the room,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer useful. Now I'm totally useless. And once I understand that, journey becomes a whole lot better.
Yeah.
The conversations become easier because I understand what I'm dealing with now.
Mm.
There's a whole lot more confidence because I've gotten connected to me and I'm feeling more comfortable with me now.
Mm.
So what I want to ask you is this: um, what do you say to a child
Mm.
about being authentic, or the value of being authentic? How do you approach that to a child?
Really, that's a great question. And I'm trying to, as an educator, I'm trying to think about some of the things that I share with children.
Mhm.
And one of the things I talk to them about, and that I've even just observed, is as they try to fit in,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a contradiction. I see it more so with middle schoolers. It's like they want to be the first, they want to stand out, and they want to be different. But at the same time, they want to be like everybody else. It's like, make your choice. What are you going for here? What's the end game? What's your goal, right?
Mhm.
But I try to point out the obvious, that you're already different.
Right.
So it's just embracing that, right? Um, I want children to understand that it begins with learning how to love yourself, right? What does that mean? How do you know you love yourself? You know what? How do you describe that to a young person? Um, the kindness that you would give to another, learn to give that kindness to yourself. The the patience that you would give to another, learn to give that to yourself. I also talk to them about how important it is just to be okay with just being you, to help them understand that you don't need anything extra. I can already see in a lot of especially with the little girls, how they are impacted by this weird idea of what beauty is supposed to be, and how um, if they feel like if their hair doesn't look a certain way, or their skin color isn't a certain way, or that they're not pretty, and that they have low self-esteem and they're feeling bad about themselves, and I try to just get them to understand what beauty really is, because we all look different by design, right? And so the so-called standard, whatever that is these days, for what beauty is, does not apply to you, right? That has nothing to do with you, because you were created beautiful. There is, see people say, well, he's this, he's that, he's fine. Why? Because he fits the standard. That doesn't define you or make you beautiful. You are your kind of beautiful, right? And you don't look like anybody else. Your uniqueness makes you beautiful. And because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, then it's all about my perception, right? I think it's important that children learn that the value of themselves and their worth outside of those things. And I try to present as many examples as I can so that they understand it's not about you becoming great. You're born great. You got to make something of yourself. Why? Because what I am now is not enough. I remember in class one time I was talking to some of the students, and the little boy said something. I can't remember what his statement was exactly. But Murphy said something, and I said, "You already are great." And he looked at me like he couldn't believe I said it. But at the same time, he was like, "You know, you're right." Yes. You know, we do young people a disservice, and you got to make something of your life. And I get it. I understand what parents mean. I understand what adults mean. I understand what teachers. I get it. You know, that they want, you know, them to have opportunities and that kind of thing. But our value and our worth is inherent in just who we are, not because our name is going to be in lights or not because we're going to be famous or be good at sports. And no, you just we're born, we're created worthy. You know, we have to beat ourselves up thinking that we're not, because we are. You cannot tell me that a child that is born with something's wrong with them. No, born worthy, born valuable, born worthy of love or whatever else, you know? And those are the kinds of things that I try to express to young people so that they have an understanding. Because when you get that, when you're young, it changes everything. It changes how you look at other people, in addition to how you look at yourself. Because if I don't see value in myself, guess what? I'm not going to see value in anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't love myself, then I'm not going to show love to anyone else.
Mm-hmm. So I was working with a group of kids a few years ago, and I had given this assignment that
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't think it was a big deal. But the time had come. I'd given them a time limit. It was getting close to we were running out of time. And
Okay.
the closer we got to the time, the more upset the young people got.
Mm-hmm.
To the point to some of them were crying because they thought they were making mistakes.
Wow.
And they also were upset because they did not know that, number one, they had permission to think and use their own brains. But they also didn't even know of the possibility of that, because nobody had told them up to that point, you can think this out on your own.
Right.
Now, some people would have called them lazy or whatever, but this was for real. They really did not know, unless something was laid out in front of them, unless something was given to them like verbatim, do this, this, and this. If they were given any freedom to think on their own,
Mm-hmm.
that was a very scary moment. That blew me away.
Wow. Yeah. I've seen it often.
So is there a remedy for that?
Absolutely. And what I've discovered and tried to practice as I work with young people is to help them understand that I am doing you a disservice if I don't teach you how to think for yourself. Right? The vision in my classroom is a classroom filled with thinkers, leaders, problem solvers. Thinkers, leaders, problem solvers. Sometimes they'll ask me a question. I'm like, I throw it back. Well, what do you think? Right? The learning environment should be empowering, right?
Yeah.
And I think where sometimes as adults, where we've missed it, for whatever reason, it could be because of pressure, it could be because of time, could be of lack of patience, and it could be just because of maybe we need to have a paradigm shift in the way we look at our relationship with young people, but whatever the reason, we have to not just tell them what to do, but give them the space and walk with them so that they know how to do it, right? Helping them to understand how to solve problems, how to think things through. But if I'm always the one as the adult coming back with an answer, then I'm not giving them the space to think. One of the things that I like to pride myself, I think I've done pretty well with this over my career, I've learned, is I give think space. I might ask a question and you think I'm going to just go to the next person because you're taking up extra time? No, we're going to wait. And I'm going to give you time to process because you're not a robot. So you need some time to process, to think about it. And I might say, you keep thinking, I'm coming back while I go to somebody else. And know that I'm coming back to ask you because I gave you some time to think about it. I think it's so important to give young people an opportunity to think, show them how to think. You know, sometimes you might have to scaffold it, a little teaching word we do, you know, break that thing down. Okay, well, they might not know where to begin. Okay, well, let me give you a little cheat sheet with it. Okay, well, here are some choices. How about A? How about B or C? Now you think on that for a minute. You're like, you know, still messed up. Okay, well, let's break it down. This is the probability if you do A. This is likely if you do B. This may happen if you do C. You think on that. I'm coming back. But see, that takes time. That takes commitment. And that takes patience. And not all the time do we have that, but that's the remedy because you have to do that. You have to practice that all the time. Then after a while, they get it like, oh, wait a minute. I got some options here. Let me think about this. Well, we could do it this way, or we could do it this way. And helping them understand that for every choice, there is a result or a consequence, right? From what I do, help them to understand that, right? But that takes commitment, time, practice, patience. But that's the remedy as far as I see it.
Okay, so with old heads,
Old heads.
would you approach it the same way, or do you have to come at that a little differently, or what do you think? Because there's a lot of us walking around instead of becoming free, just going the same path because it's just easier to do it that way. What do you think?
How's that working for you? If we
Right.
always do what we always done, we're gonna always get what we always got, you know? And our age doesn't have anything to do with it, you know, either we gonna change or we not, you know, but the need is going to be there, right? And so if we can't take the same approach to a problem that we know is not working, right? Like certain consequences, you know. I'm not saying I'm an advocate of this or that or whatever. I'm just putting it out there. Like I hear from a lot of my parents talk about, well, I spanked them and blah, 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 and I whooped that. Okay, how'd that work? You know, no judgment. How'd that work? I just had to beat them all the time. Well, something's not working. You might want to think of something else to do, right? There's every child has a different personality. Every child has a different temperament and mindset. So, and the reason I use the spanking because that's an old approach. I know, for no doubt, to how to handle discipline and that type of thing, right? But you know, I kid you not, I had a parent the other day. She told me that I spank him and blah blah blah. And he's like, when I get finished, okay. And I'm like, whoo, you know, children they say some stuff these days that, you know, my generation was even afraid to think about, right? So that stuff's not going to work, you know, and they want to know why, you know, they want to know, and we have to take the time to explain why, you know, because that for old heads, you know, what is it? Because I said so. No, that's only going to go so far, you know, or do as I say, not as I do, you know, what our example speaks greater volumes many times than our words. So we have to think about that. And we also have to think about what kind of relationship we have with our children. I don't know if you're aware of the phrase conscious parenting. But with conscious parenting, we understand we have an awareness of, watch this. I know some folk gonna go left with it, but here it is, where we understand that our children and their role in our lives is that it's almost like the children come to teach us, not necessarily the other way around. And thinking about my almost 30 years with young folks, young people, and recognizing how many lessons I've learned from them just by being who they are. You know, we expect all of these things from young people a lot of times that we're not willing to do ourselves as adults. You know, we want them to forgive instantly. Tell them you're sorry. Shake his hand. Tell them you're sorry. Oh, we're gonna do that too. You know, and that's just one example. You know, but it's so important when to have an awareness that where we understand that we are, as adults, we're to train, we're to support, we're to guide, but we're not supposed to crush their spirits. We're not supposed to keep them from being authentically who they are. We're not supposed to keep them from being true to themselves. You know, there was some absolutes. And when, you know, when I was young, you know, it's like, look, either you do it or you don't, you know? And then for old heads, as you say, it's like, why they gotta have so many choices? You know? So it is. Is that such a bad thing though, for them to have a choice? It's just maybe an inconvenience for us who wish things might be a little bit different.
When programming gets upset, it's uncomfortable for everybody who's not ready to be deprogrammed. My parents and my teachers, they gave me the freedom to be who I am. I was never confined to a particular idea or ideal. I was never confined to a particular path. I was given the room to figure it out. My father, I've always said he believed in me, but I'm not totally sure. This is what I know. My father always treated me like I would figure it out. There was something wrong with the toilet one day, and he had always fixed everything, so I didn't have a clue. So he left the house. He came back. He brought the part back, and then he said, "Here's the part. Put it on whenever you feel like it," and he walked away. I spent my whole life like that, figuring it out. That's the reason I approach life the way that I approach it. And my family and my teachers, they all did the same thing. They taught me how to think.
Awesome.
That's the reason that my approach is the way that it is. So when someone has a question, young people are always guilty throughout the generations of the same thing. They always expose the weaknesses of the adults that they're closest to. They always expose the things that don't make sense.
Okay.
Because when you're asked why, two things happen. Either you remember why you do it, or you realize you ain't got a clue why you do what you do. So either you have an answer or you don't. That's why I was bringing up young people, because they have a lot to contend with, especially when there's no support of the humans that they are. Everybody needed some patience at some point. Everybody needed somebody around to allow them to evolve into whatever it is that they're going to evolve into. sometimes life is a little bit, it's constricted. It's I mean, you wouldn't tell a rose to be something other than what it is, because that was the point of planting that thing in the first place.
Right, right.
So then why try to dictate the process along the way? And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. Hey, so before I let you go, there's something else I want to dig into a little bit.
Okay.
Um, the um, the cost of freedom. I've heard variations on this, but I want to get your thoughts about this. Psychological, emotional, and sometimes physical costs of getting your freedom. What do you think about that?
The first thing that came to mind when you said that was not cost, but the burden
Okay.
that can come from freedom or wanting to be free, because it takes a certain commitment to stay on the path, right? But even if we started on the path and we're moving forward, to try to come back from it once you've tasted freedom, it puts us in a place that it would put a person in a place where they really wouldn't want to be, right? Because once you experience freedom and it's kind of like leaving home and then trying to go back. You know what that feels like? It's like, I was good. Now I got to go back to the house and, things are different. They shifted. I'm grown. No, you're not. That whole conversation, it reminds me of that a little bit. But this is what I understand and where I am today in this now moment. I understand that freedom and abundance are my birthrights just because I was born. Now, whatever path I take to understand that and to get insight on that is based on the choices that I make, right? I can make choices that'll get me quicker to that understanding, or I can make some choices that are like the scenic route. But watch this. When I got this, Brother Riley, I felt like shouting. I think I did. I think I hollered a couple times. Look, we think, well, I messed up, or I should have done this, and we end up shoulda and all over ourselves, right? I should have went this way. I should have. No. Understand. Sometimes, some people call it course correcting, or some people call it different names. But this is what I'm going with right here. Whether I take the straight route or I take the scenic route to get to that understanding of freedom and abundance, both of them are good. If I don't take the straight route, then there must have been some other experiences that I needed before I could get to that understanding so that I could have a greater understanding when I got there. But when I understand that freedom and abundance are my birthright, then there is no more of a burden than I put on myself. No more of a burden than I believe to be. No more of a burden than I buy into the illusion that such exists. Because it's all mental. It's all what I believe to be so. If I believe it's a burden, then it's so hard to get along. If I believe that everybody's against me, then everybody is against me, right? But if I understand that freedom and abundance are my birthrights, then when I look at life, I tend to see it as the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. If I know that abundance, and this is a practice, this comes with daily practice, this comes with daily doing the inner work, this comes with daily, making sure that I understand, that I assert myself to being open to gain insight. When I do that, then there is no obstacle that I see as insurmountable. You know, and that's not a Pollyanna attitude. That's just facts, is the way I see it. This is what I've shown to happen in my life, or I've seen proof for it to happen in my life. Because the only reason there's a burden or a cost is when I value other people's opinion more than my own. The only time that there's a burden or a cost is when I think that what somebody else is doing has anything to do with what I'm doing. As long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, walking in my purpose, staying in my lane, then I'm lining myself up with the way things are supposed to map out in my life. And some saying, well, doesn't it matter? Well, I'm concerned. I care about what other people are doing. I want people to do well, but it's none of my business. Unless they invite me and make it my business.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I don't care. It just means I know how to stay in my lane. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely.
Hopefully, and it makes sense to me. I guess a better word was that clear. I was wondering maybe if I should maybe unwrap that in a different way, because it took me a minute to get to that place now, you know, and I have to always check myself, you know, to make sure that I stay in that lane, because the moment I value somebody else's opinion more than my own, I'm gonna get sidetracked, because my authenticity and my expression is not based on how others respond. It's just based on my expression. You know how many people are misunderstood because they were authentic? Because they were the so-called first ones to do it, right? And then after everybody talked about them, then they did it. You know, but being the first one out the gate to do something, or just being the person to do it differently, doesn't make you wrong. It makes you you. It makes you authentic. I was looking at a documentary the other day. I can't recall the name of it right now. And I heard about you being a musician. I'm sure you know about the auto-tunes machine.
Yes.
Is that right? Auto-tune.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, they were doing an interview with T-Pain, and I barely know who he is, but I heard what he was saying. He said that he was one of the first ones to do a song with auto-tunes and be honest about it. Mm-hmm. And in his interview, he said they came for him so harshly because it wasn't his voice. And they was like, well, you know, people are gonna get tired of listening. And for those that don't know, the auto-tunes, you know, it fixes your voice so you're always in tune and always in pitch and that kind of stuff. And you don't even have to really be able to sing. You can just sing and it'll fix it for you. Is that right, Bro Riley? Am I saying it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he was the first one to not really use this machine, but use the machine and be honest about it, that he had used it and made some tracks off of, made some music off of it. And when they found out about it, they came for him. The brother went into a 4-year, he said it was he said, I realized that my depression started then, 4 years, because they came for him. What was he doing? He was valuing other people's opinion more than his own, right? And they were dogging him. Now, you know how many people use auto-tunes?
Yeah.
But because he was first, because he was doing something different, well, one of the first, or however it goes, you know, he got the backlash. So here it is. If you're willing to be authentic, you might get some naysayers. You might get some haters. But will you still stand in your own truth? Will you still stand and stay in your own lane, regardless of who joins you or who doesn't? That's what it means to be authentic, because it's not about being rebellious against them, but it's about being true to yourself and loving yourself and honoring your own decisions and your own presence enough to say, hey, if they're with me, they're with me. If they're not, they're not. And I'm okay with that. And when you look at it like that, there is no burden, because it's all about perspective. It's all about mentality. There is no cost, because if they're not with you, they're not meant to be with you. If they left you, they weren't meant to go the course. And that's another lesson with that. Understanding detachment. Woo, that's a good one to learn. If you're gonna be spiritual, if you're gonna be in this walk, you have to learn the blessing in detachment. Most of the suffering that we have in life is because we want to hold on to situations and circumstances and people when they're not meant to be forever, but only for a moment. You know? What is that old adage? How does it go? Some people are meant to be in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, or whatever it is. You know, sometimes we want people to stay around that were only meant to be there for that particular moment. And we want them now, wintertime, springtime, summertime, right? But detachment, letting go of what no longer serves us, meaning what no longer benefits us or what no longer is for our highest good. Because just because it was for my highest good last year, doesn't mean it's for my highest good this year. You can even go, look, it was for my highest good yesterday, but not today. Yeah, because so when you understand that, when you understand detachment, when you understand making sure that I only have what's around me and with me is for my highest good, and when you understand the birthright of abundance and freedom, that I'm born free, I'm born to have abundance, and that takes us a process to get to that, to manifest that, to access that sometimes, and to walk in it. Not everybody, because everybody's path is different. But when I understand that, there is no cost. I know them heavy words. I know it. But it's true for me.
Very good. I dig it. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay, so before I let you go, how do we connect with you?
Oh, okay. Wow. You can go to my website. It's authenticthought.net. It's spelled how it sounds, both words, authenticthought.net. We reach there. If you're on IG, I do daily inspiration there, daily words of encouragement, do some videos. I just did one this morning about, I think it was purpose and knowing who you are. That's my thing, all about authenticity. But IG, I'm at DocFree76, DOCFREE76. Also at Reiki, REIKI .FORYOU, Reiki dot for you, or books by Dr. Free. All those are IG. Those are great ways to contact me, or you could contact me by way of my online school at authenticity-academy.teachable.com. Authenticity-academy.teachable.com.
Fantastic. Thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me. I hope that it was said or done that will encourage somebody to walk forward in purpose and to live their life, on the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I hope we do this again.
Thank you so much. That'd be nice. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Take care, Dr. Free.
You too, Brother Riley.